I was like any other high school grad, excited for the future but unsure of where I was headed. I spent my days with friends, dreaming of success and adventure, though my goals were vague. My family was supportive but sometimes distant. That uncertainty weighed on me, but it was nothing compared to what came next. One day I was a young man fresh out of school. The next, everything changed. I don't remember much about the accident, but it left me in a coma for 2 years. When I woke up, I was covered in scars, confused, and had no memory of my life before. My family was gone, and I felt lost. Suddenly, I heard Zoe's voice cut through the chaos of my dream. "Roger, wake up, sweetheart. You're dreaming again." I had been dreaming of bees, just like always. After nearly 30 years together, Zoe still laughed when I told her it was the killer bees, a nod to an old Saturday Night Live skit. I took a shower to shake off the lingering effects. These dreams had haunted me since the accident at 18. Though I don't recall the accident, I know I was in a coma for 2 years. When I finally woke, I decided to go to college. Scarred but healed, I was ready to move forward, even though my family was nowhere to be found. The accident must have been serious. My body showed signs of extensive surgery. I wondered if I had enjoyed life before it happened because I certainly paid a high price. Afterward, I became cautious, preferring a quiet, simple life. I found myself drawn to accounting, a career I'd never imagined in high school. The doctors said it wasn't unusual to forget details. I just wanted a peaceful life, a loving family, a house with a pool, and a quiet routine. The bees, though, always returned in my dreams. "Got another fly swatter?" I asked in my dream. The bees were relentless, and every sting hurt more than the last. Then, Zoe's voice brought me back to reality again. "Roger, wake up. It's just a dream." "They're getting worse," I admitted, though my doctor insisted it was just an aversion to bees. Zoe and I married when I was 20 and she was 25 in a small church near my college. It was a quiet affair. Neither of us had much family. We settled down, living among her friends, and I continued school. By 1975, I had a degree in accounting and computer science, though it seemed to happen fast. I didn't question it, just started my career as an accountant, a simple job that suited my newfound preference for a quiet life. I often worked alone, counting inventory. If 2 of us counted together, we could agree on a number, even if it was wrong. But when counting separately, the audit would be accurate. It was boring, but I liked it. No one bothered me, and I could work at my own pace. "Bees again," I muttered. "Where are they coming from?" I waved my hand and felt them strike, even drawing blood. "Beekeeper, do something about these things." "Whoop?" "These are killer bees. Put something on the stings." "What's that noise? A bird?" "No, it's too big." "A pterodactyl?" Then it hit me. "Damn, stung again. What kind of bird is this?" Zoe's voice pulled me out of the dream. "Roger, wake up. You're having a bad dream. Go take a shower." The dreams were intense. My scars hurt, and the people in the dreams were like ghosts, faceless shapes. 2 years after John was born, we had Paula, my little princess. I loved John, but Paula had me wrapped around her finger, just like her mom. I adored my kids and Zoe. I loved watching them sleep, helping them walk, ride a bike, and play catch. Those moments were my happiest. We had neighborhood barbecues, and though everyone knew each other well, I was the newcomer. Maybe it was because I married Zoe quickly after she got pregnant. Our relationship was decent, but after marriage, our sex life faded. Zoe wasn't interested, so it became infrequent. But I had my kids and a calm life, which kept me content. I overheard the women talking once. "Zoe, how do you put up with boring Roger?" "Roger's perfect," Zoe replied. "He doesn't drink, smoke, or gamble. He loves me and the kids, and is a great provider." Zoe soon announced she was pregnant with Billy, and we celebrated with friends. Our kids grew up together with the neighborhood kids, and we were part of a tight-knit group. People teased me about being boring, but I didn't mind. I loved running, even though no one else joined me. My job auditing warehouses kept me in shape. Counting all those items required physical effort. At home, I used weights in the basement and kept up with the kids' activities, music lessons, sports, and more. Zoe stayed busy as a full-time mom, managing it all. Whop, whop. "Is that a pterodactyl?" I muttered. "These damn bees are everywhere. Beekeeper, get rid of them. People are getting stung and it's dangerous. Give them the bee sting serum, but don't touch me. I'll swat you." "Dragonflies? Where did they come from? At least they eat the bees." "Roger, wake up, honey. Go take a shower," Zoe said. I did as she asked, but my scars ached and I had a headache. "I hate bees," I told her. I keep dreaming about prehistoric birds, snakes, and hogs. The dreams are getting crazier. Why can't I remember the accident? I asked the doctor while Zoe sat with me. And these weird dreams? Your memory loss could be from post-traumatic stress, the doctor said. As for the dreams, they might be linked to the accident. Doctor, I don't know what kind of pterodactyl it was. I'm an accountant, not a paleontologist. The questions annoyed me. The dreams got worse, but life remained steady and dull, which I liked. I went to work, counted beans, and came home. Sex with Zoe became less frequent, but that didn't bother me much. Doctor, now I'm dreaming about dancing, like in West Side Story, I told him. It's not sexual, but I'm dancing with men, holding hands, ballroom style. The bees are always there in the background, I added, and sometimes there are snakes, hogs, and dragonflies, and we start skidding. The doctor didn't have answers. He asked Zoe if anything at home was unusual, but she said I was the same as always, except for the dreams. That was the last time I saw him. Life went on with the usual Saturday barbecues and neighborhood events. Our group was close-knit, about 20 people, plus kids. We attended PTA meetings, saved for college, and dealt with weddings. I worked extra shifts when we needed money, and I was proud to provide for my family. The house was paid off, we had retirement accounts, and I even managed new cars and vacations. Zoe's friends would sometimes tease her. How do you deal with being married to someone so boring? I entertain myself, Zoe would reply. Roger's good to me, provides for us, and loves me and the kids. I'm happy, and you should be so lucky. As time passed, we approached our 30th anniversary. The others have been stung. Beekeeper, help them. Where are all these bees coming from? Someone give me another fly swatter, I mumbled in another wild dream. It was just another bizarre night, but by now, I was used to it. Hey, Roger, still dancing with men while the bees sting you? Randolph joked, making everyone laugh. I was surprised that Zoe had mentioned my dreams about dancing with men to anyone, especially her friends. That was supposed to stay between us. On the drive home, I pulled over to talk to her. Zoe, why did you tell people something so personal? You've betrayed my trust, I said. Zoe just laughed. Roger, these are our best friends. We see them every day, take vacations together, and share meals. Why are you being upset? You're the one dancing with other men, she said. That was the moment I realized others were more important to Zoe than I was. It made me suspicious, and I hated feeling that way. After a few months of paying closer attention, I found out the truth. One day I showed up at one of their gatherings uninvited. It was something I'd never done in 30 years, even though they often dropped by our house without notice. Inside, I found Zoe, our adult children, and all 20 of our so-called friends, unclothed and having sex. Well, you found out, Robert said as everyone laughed. Come in, Roger, and learn the truth about your boring life. Zoe introduced the men she had been with, pointing out that their middle names matched our children's first names. It confirmed what I already suspected. It turned out that many people, including our adult children, had been part of a secret group, but I was not aware of it. My children had long since stopped calling me Dad, and now I knew why. Why, Zoe? Why did you steal 30 years of my life? What did I ever do to deserve this? I asked. Zoe looked at me with exasperation. Roger, you're just boring. You have no passion, no backbone. We were all part of a pact since childhood to stay together, to have sex with each other. You were just the extra man to keep the group even. We kept you in the dark because you liked it there. I couldn't risk you being the father of my kids. I needed better genes than yours. Why didn't you want a real marriage with me? I asked. I wanted more sex, more connection, but you always shut me down. Zoe replied coldly, if I gave you what you wanted, you'd figure out the truth. I couldn't take that chance. I picked you because I was already pregnant, and you were easy to manipulate. Sleep with you once, say you were the father, and it was done. You never stood a chance of figuring it out. Was that all I was to you? Just someone to give you money while you slept with your old friends and dragged our kids into this mess? Was everything you said to me, all the baby and honey, a lie? I asked. Don't be ridiculous, Roger. I sort of liked you. Calling you baby and honey was just being nice. But after years of those stupid dreams about dancing with men, you disgusted me. You're a freak, worrying about dragonflies, prehistoric birds, and bees. Now you know, but it's too late. If you divorce me, I'll get half of everything in alimony for life, Zoe said, smiling. And your lovers, were they all in on this? I demanded. They're not just sex buddies, Roger. They're my lovers. We've loved each other since childhood, something you'll never understand, Zoe replied. Her friends chimed in, laughing. You were the perfect fool, Roger. While you worked, we were screwing your wife and your kids. None of us would have touched you. You weren't worth it. We kept you around for your money and used you to raise our kids." Everyone joined in, showing their contempt for me. They had used my money and kept me in the dark for years. Now, with the truth out, they didn't bother hiding it anymore. "Be a good boy and clean the house. I'll be back in a few days," Zoe said as they all laughed. As I walked out, I turned to Zoe and said, "You betrayed me for this? You gave your children to people who treat you like garbage. You're proud of that? Did you ever notice your friends' kids aren't part of this? Think about why." I continued, "Your lover eliminated himself rather than marry someone pregnant by John. Didn't that clue you in? I'm just glad I'm not part of your gene pool." My hidden camera had recorded everything. "Come back anytime, Roger," John Sr. said as I left. "Bring some friends." "Oh, wait, you don't have any," he mocked. But I did have 6 county marshals waiting outside, ready to serve everyone with court papers. "They're all inside," I told the officers. The screams from 23 unclothed people as 6 marshals entered were deafening. I smiled as I walked away, unhurried. The restraining orders would keep them away while everything settled. The divorce was ugly, but I handled it in the county seat, not my hometown. I filed for an annulment based on fraud, and with the evidence from our talk, I hit Zoe's friends for millions. They admitted the whole conspiracy, how they used me to pay for everything while they carried on their affairs. With their confession, I secured the house, all our savings, retirement accounts, everything. Since it was fraud, there was no community property. Zoe and her friends owed me for raising their kids. The kids who had long stopped calling me dad, hated me for what I did to their parents. I wasn't done. As a bean counter, I knew exactly how to get what I was owed. In the end, I got over $5 million from all involved. It didn't ruin them, but it put a serious dent in their finances. They even pooled their money to pay me off, especially after I started filing writs of attachment. I also had the birth certificates changed since they were based on fraud, and Zoe had to give up my last name. I didn't care what names the kids used. I lost contact with all of them and didn't want to live in the house, but I didn't want to sell it either. I wanted to destroy it. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I returned to the neighborhood with a crew to demolish the house. Zoe and the kids went crazy. The house was worth $600,000, but I jacked up the price to $1.1 million, and all their Zex buddies bought it. Their Zex lives depended on owning that house because it connected to their properties. I made an extra $500,000 in just a few days of negotiating. Before leaving, I destroyed every trace of our life together. Photos, cards, school projects. I left the house filthy with rotten food and utilities shut off. I even painted every wall, ceiling, and window black. Zoe got the house, and it became their party house. She became the group's housekeeper, or more accurately, their personal strumpet, though she never saw it that way. She believed her kids were special because they were part of the group, but it was because they were foolish enough to believe her lies. I quit my job and left everything behind, including my clothes. I drove all night, stopped at a cheap motel, and the next day bought new clothes at Walmart. I changed rental cars and discarded everything that could remind me of those 30 wasted years. It was like stomping the dust from my feet. A clean break. 2 days later, I was in D.C., at the Pentagon, well, actually an annex, filling out a job application. I gave them my days in address and a new cell number, having ditched the old one they had been using to track me. During my investigation, I discovered they were forwarding my calls, so I used that to stay ahead of them. The DoD hired me the next week. The interview was odd, but they needed a CPA and I had the credentials. When asked if I'd use veteran preference, I explained my coma and not serving in Vietnam. A Navy officer even took my fingerprints electronically. "Welcome to the Department of Defense, Mr. Phil," they said with a smile. "Where would you like to start?" I surprised myself by saying I wanted to go to Iraq or Afghanistan for some excitement. I was tired of my dull life and needed a change. A few days later, I was fitted with body armor I had to buy myself and sent to weapons training. Strange for a civilian auditor. But they insisted, saying, "We think you should." I wasn't Rambo, but I carried twin .45s, an M16A4, and an M9 bayonet. My first assignment was Afghanistan. When I heard the whop-whop of the helicopter's blades, it hit me. That was the sound from my dreams. It wasn't exactly the same, but close enough. I must have heard it before, even if I didn't remember. I still had the dreams, but now there was no deceitful wife pretending to care. I visited various bases, auditing assets, and quickly learned that alliances could be bought short-term. The enemy of my enemy was a friend, but only for the right price. The dreams continued. But now the smoke people took shape, with faint faces appearing. I was an old man among young soldiers, some barely 18, already with children of their own. To them, if you were 30, you were dad. 40 made you gramps. And over 50, you were just old man. These young soldiers moved with precision, like a deadly ballet, following orders without hesitation. It reminded me of Tiberius, whose drills were like bloodless battles, while his battles were bloody drills. I admired their discipline, but wondered how they'd feel later in life, having been forced to do such violent things. The dreams persisted, dragonflies, snakes, hogs, bees, but their intensity faded. Faces appeared on the smoke figures, young faces of people I didn't know. Meanwhile, I continued my work, counting everything from bullets and rockets to socks and water bottles. We had to plan ahead, ensuring we had what was needed for the future, always accounting for losses along the way. Planning was critical, as everything had to be stocked, shipped, and tracked. About 4 months in, we were ambushed. Bullets flew, sounding like bees buzzing overhead. Despite the chaos, I remained calm. The soldiers moved with precision, and I followed their lead, watching for flanking movements and calling for fire. Training kicked in, and we moved as one, the firefight. The firefight ended quickly, and the enemy retreated into the terrain. After that day, the dreams nearly stopped, replaced by the harsh reality of war. I moved to Iraq for the same job, counting supplies, reporting what was needed and what wasn't. The scale grew, with more items to track and more things to lose. I went on patrols, claiming I needed to assess assets, but really just wanting to escape the warehouse. Like a dancer moving to music, we moved to the rhythm of war. I stayed solitary, rarely spoke, but constantly observed, took notes, and filed reports. The DoD loves paperwork, now all computerized. I uploaded everything via satellite. There were distractions everywhere, even bees, just a few stings here and there. I let my superiors know. I had been there over 4 years, originally part of a team, then leading one, and eventually working solo. War became home, a distraction from the past 30 years. Despite firefights and wounds, none serious, I survived. I continued auditing supply depots, counting everything needed for military operations. All branches, Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, played their part in this deadly game. I didn't enjoy battle or taking lives, but the absence of dreams was a relief. I was well equipped, and nobody bothered me, not even high-ranking officers. I simply did my job, learned the area, and helped where needed. I had no real friends, just pseudo-friends, fellow Americans I would liquidate or die for. The mission was simple: break things, create widows, get home alive. Everything else was noise. When I entered a new depot, I knew I'd face the same routine. A sergeant major would give me grief, and I'd have to put them in their place. The script was always the same: stay out of my way, let me do my job. Sergeant Major Claw was no different. "This is my house, my rules," she said, getting in my face. Nose to nose, it was a standoff, just like always. "Don't give me that," I replied. "This is my jurisdiction. I monitor everything here." She barked back, telling me not to touch anything without her permission. As she stormed off, I noted her sharp posture and appearance, pegging her as an American Indian. I left the area knowing I couldn't escalate the situation further. Instead, I joined a patrol, needing to escape the depot and get back to the battlefield. Sergeant Major Claw, her real name, Sergeant Major Jen Claw, was born with a strong grip, earning her the nickname Iron Claw from her grandfather. A full-blooded Northern Blackfoot, she was raised by her grandparents after her parents died mysteriously in a car crash. Her grandfather, a warrior with scars from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, taught her the old ways. Claw followed in his footsteps, becoming a warrior at 18, serving in Kosovo and Montenegro, and rising through the ranks without compromise. She earned a master's in warehouse management and took pride in her American Indian heritage. She was determined not to let anyone, especially a civilian like Roger, get the best of her. Meanwhile, Roger returned to the depot one evening and found Claw sleeping in full uniform, ready for battle, with her .45 by her side. Roger lied about securing the depot, knowing he was drawn to her, though their relationship remained tense. Claw, always on guard, was a force to be reckoned with. This depot, while not the largest, became Roger's base. He constantly inspected inventory, checked records, and ensured supplies were managed properly. His interactions with Claw were confrontational, but no duels were allowed. If there were, he knew she'd win. Despite their friction, Roger respected her. Sergeant Major Claw was equally frustrated with Roger. To her, he was a civilian playing soldier, a potential liability. Despite her efforts to get him off patrols, Roger seemed untouchable. He even earned respect from the SEALs. Claw couldn't figure out why, but she kept trying. War, bees, firefights, and strange dreams surrounded them both, making their battlefield rivalry even more intense. Sergeant Major Claw, I was raised by my grandparents after my parents' end of lives, and my life has always been the Army. I've searched for a warrior like my grandmother found in my grandfather, but at 45, I've accepted I won't find him and children won't come. Grandfather, a warrior with scars from World War II, Korea, and Vietnam, always said I'd have children, but now that seems impossible. Recently, my dreams have been filled with Roger. I see him differently now. He's scarred, not from a car accident, but from battles, the kind of scars only a warrior bears. One night I watched him shower, cleaning his hands as if trying to wash away invisible blood. He saw me watching, and though I felt fear, I realized he trusted me. It wasn't romantic love, it was something deeper. He was my warrior. Meanwhile, Roger, Claw looked at me, and I told her everything about my past, my dead marriage, my wife's infidelities, and my 3 kids who weren't mine. I hadn't felt anything for years, but meeting Claw changed that. She smiled and said, "Then you're ready." There was love and playfulness in her eyes, something I never saw with my ex. She called me her gray-haired war stallion and invited me to make love to her. Her battle scars and age didn't matter to me. She was perfect. We kissed, and I felt her passion, hoping she saw the same love in my eyes. "I love you," I told her. "And if you ever stop, I'll scalp you for real," she replied. This was the connection I had longed for my entire life. Later, Claw asked if she could tell her grandfather about my dreams, explaining he understood dreams better than anyone. It was the first time someone asked for permission to share my dreams rather than just doing it. I agreed, trusting her completely. Sergeant Major Claw, yes. If my grandfather can help with the dreams, good. I don't have them as much anymore, but I'd like to know their meaning. I asked him, "What do they mean? And what about his scars? They didn't come from a car accident." Grandfather said, "His spirit is troubled, but you're helping him. He's the warrior you've been searching for. He found you without knowing it. Everything will happen as it's meant to. Don't worry." I joked, "Sometimes your mystic stuff drives me crazy, but you're always right." Grandfather laughed, and I told grandmother the good news. Grandmother said, "I heard it all. You'll make me a great-grandmother soon, and don't keep the kids too far from us. Roger." The conversation with Claw's grandparents went on, as such things do. Claw and I were lovers, and she admired my scars, calling them beautiful. She didn't care about my past. She wanted me as I was. We worked hard, but always found time for each other, even in a war zone. 3 months into our relationship, we knew everything about each other. She loved my scars, kissing them tenderly. Sergeant Major Jin Claw was the love of my life. Then, everything changed. Early one morning, I was inside the depot when fire shot erupted. I rushed outside to see a chopper going down, likely shot by insurgents. There were over 100 attacking us. I saw Claw running toward the chopper, firing her .45. She reloaded and kept going, straight into the chaos. I ran after her, shooting as many as I could. We were caught off guard during a vulnerable moment, but I only cared about Jin. I saw Claw fall after being hit by a bullet that knocked her down. I reached her within seconds. She was alive, but hurt. Her vest had slowed the bullet. I handed her one of my .45s and extra magazines, telling her, "Liquidate anything that comes over that berm, even if you think it's me." I charged at the enemy, firing until I ran out of ammo. My only thought was saving Jin. Reinforcements were coming, but one enemy got close enough to shoot me. Fueled by anger, I kept going. When I was out of ammo, I pulled my M9 and engaged him in hand-to-hand combat. He was carrying a dangerous device. I grabbed his right hand to prevent him from setting off the device. I hoped I could keep it from exploding, and I was lucky it didn't. The men from the helicopter got closer, but my enemy tried to escape. I knew this fight well. With my left hand gripping his right, I guided him to his end of life. I had to stop him to prevent harm to others. His eyes widened as he realized he was dying, but he was ready for it. As he died, I lifted him with the knife still in his skull, and we fell near a trench. I released his body into the trench as an explosion rocked the area, causing me to lose consciousness. "Whop, whop, whop! Where are the damn bees coming from?" I shouted, trying to regain control. "We're under attack from every side! Fly swatter, I need more ammo!" I barked, catching a bandolier someone threw. "Johnson Roberts, you're with me! Suppressing fire on the left," I ordered. Williams, stay put and fire at anything on the right. Hit the tree line. I gave quiet instructions. Johnson, Roberts, blades only, no prisoners, be fast and silent. Bullets flew everywhere like angry bees, and I heard Johnson joke with Roberts, laughing despite the chaos. Quit laughing, Johnson, or you'll get eliminated, I warned. The sound of cobras firing filled the air. Cover your necks, that brass is hot, I shouted. Slick's inbound, get ready to move. Wilson grabbed Johnson, yelling, Don't die on me, Johnson, I'll find you in hell and kick your back if you do. Medic, over here, help Johnson, I shouted as the battle raged. Hit the tree lines with a grenade launcher. Move toward the LZ, drag anyone you can, no one gets left behind, I ordered, grabbing enemy AKs along the way to blend in. Watch the smoke, Charlie can see it just like the cobras can, I warned, ensuring everyone stayed low. Medic, move it, I called again, glancing at the wounded. I turned to Ulti. You'll be the last one out, I promise. Time to dance, I whispered, calming her. I've got you, don't worry about the bees. Reassuring her, I added, Your first battle and you didn't lose a single man. You'll have to learn to write those letters, but not today. Choppers roared overhead. Dragonflies inbound, stay low, I said as the battle continued. A voice called out, How did you guys get caught here? I murmured to myself, Stay with me, Light, as I glanced at the wounded. The chief is down, but not out. Turning to the medic, I warned, Save the lieutenant or I'll put a bullet in you. The situation was chaotic, with fire shot, explosions, and helicopters everywhere. I knelt by Ulti. Stay with me. Come back. I want it all, I whispered, my voice shaky. Suddenly, I wondered, who said that? My mind was spinning. I woke up in a bright room, disoriented. Jen was there. Hi, Jen, I said. I remember everything. Snakes, hogs, bees. Did I do all this before? Yes, maybe you did, she replied with a smile. You're my brave warhorse. I noticed a ring on her finger. Are you married? How long have I been out? A little over a year, she said. And yes, I'm married to you. An officer entered. How are you feeling today? Better, I think, I replied. Have we done this before? Yes, the officer confirmed. You've been in and out for a year, but you're healed now. I then heard babies crying. Jen picked up 2 infants, cradling them in her arms. How old? I asked. 3 months, she said. This is Roger Jr., and this is Edna. They're ours. I didn't think I could have kids anymore, but here we are. And I'm married to you, forever. She handed me the babies, and I felt nothing but love. Questions could wait. I just wanted to hold my family. Jen added, I did DNA tests for you. I don't need them, I said. I already know. I noticed a simple gold band on my hand. How did we get married? I wondered, but I didn't ask. It didn't matter. 6 months later, we were at Zoe's house. The original 23 members were there, including her kids. The big screen flashed with news. Command Sergeant Major Roger Phil was to receive the Medal of Honor. The room went quiet. They can't mean our Roger Phil, John Sr. grumbled, annoyed that someone outshined him. Then a picture of me in uniform appeared, smiling, medals on my chest, with Jen and our children. The announcer introduced retired General Hannigan and Admiral Wilson, saying they served with me in Vietnam. Vietnam? Zoe gasped. Roger was in Vietnam? The announcer asked the officers to share their stories about me, leaving the group in stunned silence. General Hannigan shared, I served with then Sergeant Phil during my time as a second lieutenant in Vietnam. Phil was on his second tour and acting platoon sergeant, though he wasn't officially promoted to staff sergeant until a few days later. He always had a book with him, studying to become an accountant through Army classes. Things got rough quickly. Congress was cutting funding, so we had small platoons. Mine had 18 men, and we were part of a long-range reconnaissance patrol, LRP. We got ambushed deep in the jungle by the NVA, who were probably tipped off about our location. The firefight lasted over an hour. I was shot, and Phil took command. He ordered one of our men to use the M79 grenade launcher, but it only made things worse. The NVA kept coming like a disturbed beehive. We ran low on ammo, and Phil went hand-to-hand with several enemies, liquidating 3 of them with his knife. His main goal was to get us out alive, and he was deadly with a blade. Despite being wounded, Phil kept going. His humor helped break the tension, even in the middle of battle. We finally got support from A-37 jets, known as Dragonflies, and then Cobras, helicopters with miniguns that can fire 8,000 rounds a minute. The firepower gave us enough time to evacuate by Huey helicopters, or slicks. Phil helped get the men to safety, even grabbing enemy AK-47S to return fire and fend off the NVA as we left. General Hannigan recalled, Phil kept fighting until everyone else was on the helicopter. He was stricken twice, but provided enough cover to slow the enemy. The Cobras couldn't help because the enemy was too close. Then Phil came for me, lifting me by my web gear, even though he was wounded too. I was bleeding out, barely able to hold on to him. Phil was only 5 9 inches and about 125 pounds, but he carried me to the slick. He made sure all the men were accounted for before tossing me on board, telling me, "Now you can say you were the last man on the field." That was Phil, always putting his men first. I recommended him for the Medal of Honor, but he received the Silver Star instead. He saved all our lives that day. I tried to thank him later, but he was back in the field. His wounds weren't serious enough to send him home, not that he wanted to leave. Phil had the look, that distant, focused stare some men get when they're ready for battle. He never lost it, always in warrior mode. Now, 30 years later, I see it